Good evening, everybody. It's 7 o'clock. Just assume Alex isn't, unless he's just running late. Don't know. Welcome to Cleaner and Greener and Safer Overview and Scrutiny Committee. I'm just chairing it because Val Morris-Cook, Councillor Cook, is not here on holiday, so you're stuck with me tonight. Just like to remind everybody present that we are being recorded, so just remember you're on camera, everybody. There'll be officers attending on the Teams meeting. Do we know who? Peter Bond, and who's the other one, Jenny? Luke.
Just Peter Bond.
Just Peter. Who's the other? Oh, you. That's all right then. Okay. Thank you. Okay. Luke, any apologies for absence?
Only apologies for Councillor Morris-Cook.
Thank you. I've not agreed to any items of urgent business. Item 2. Sorry, thank you, Andrew. Sorry.
Sorry, Chair. I've just received a message from Councillor Anderson. He does send his apologies.
Sorry, I haven't got a declaration of interest, but I'm going to bring this up here because it's not anywhere else on the agenda. Can I ask why we haven't got the minutes from the previous meeting on the agenda, please?
We'd have to check with the clerk and get back to you, Councillor Kent.
Okay, because I was just checking. This is a normal scheduled meeting. It's not an extraordinary meeting.
No.
No. Okay. Yeah.
We'll get back to you on that one.
Thank you.
Thanks.
With your permission, Chair, I'm quite happy, rather than me reading through the report, which I'm sure everyone already has, I'm quite happy to just take questions straight away, giving members more time to ask questions.
Legislation that's going through at the moment, obviously, with the bins and how many we're going to have and whatever. Does that alter the small food bins? Is that going to go in somewhere else, or is that not going to take place now?
So the food trial is still continuing, and we're continuing with what we've got. The latest from government is that that's not going to change, that we will be required to have food waste. So at the moment, there's, unless officers are going to tell me differently from today, it won't change. We'll still continue with the food waste trial, which we'll report back on. I don't know if you...
Forgetting that. Partnership fund with the grants, that's 52 grand at the moment. Is that gone, or is that something that's coming? It's on page 8. Probably with active, whether it's active Essex or active Thurrock, I don't know. The last paragraph, 4.3.
Yes, Chair. As far as I'm aware, that money has now been spent on those 16 Thurrock projects.
Okay. Do we know where that's gone? What areas in Thurrock that's gone to?
So I need to get back to you, and I'll get a full list to you.
Thank you. People asking me, where it's gone. Some wards can't apply for it because we're not in the Grays area. When they want us to be in Grays, we're in Grays, but if we're not in Grays, then we don't come in for it. Thank you for that. Questions from anyone else? Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chair. Leader, about the brown bins, can I ask you that now? We finish at the end of this month, I believe, and when do we continue? In March, is it? Will it be March? Will we continue? And will that still be on a fortnightly base or go back to weekly? Thank you.
After Christmas, they'll go back to fortnightly, the same as they are now. I think it's January. I don't know the exact date. It's talking a bit of January. Yeah, end of January.
If I could just add that the frequency of the collection will remain the same. So it'll be fortnightly for brown and blue, and weekly for general waste. Yeah.
Sorry, can I just pick up on that, just a bit of clarity, because I might have got this wrong. I was under the impression that we were stopping the brown or the garden waste sort of either end of November or December time, and then the recycling or the blue bins were going to be emptied every week, and then we were going to, in the spring at some point, and I can't remember what time was suggested, I don't know, we were going to, when we restart the brown bins of the garden waste, then we'll revert back to fortnightly with that. So when the brown bins stop, and just want it clarified, when we stop collecting the brown bins in winter, like the end of this month or beginning in December, are the recycling going to go back to weekly until the brown bins are recollected in the spring?
So no, the blue bins will continue to be collected fortnightly, but we've put in the additional side waste collection as well. During the Christmas period, we will be looking at doing some additional collections because obviously people increase the amount of recycling. But the decision was taken to stick with the frequency so as not to cause confusion, because we're aware that it's been changed a lot. So the blue bins will be collected fortnightly, and then as just been said, the brown bins will then be reintroduced at some point in the new year.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, if I may. Just on, I've got two other questions. One is still on recycling or waste. We've got a waste strategy that is being written, which is due to come back to this committee, I believe. I just wondered, we've only got, after tonight, we've only one more meeting scheduled. Have you got an update on when the committee would expect to receive that, or have we know when the strategy will be ready, please?
So what was holding up the update to the waste strategy is there's been DEFRA, some changes in legislation around simpler recycling, and detail on that is only just sort of coming out now, trickling out, came out last week. So I need to use that information to inform the update. So it's kind of in draft at the moment, so it's ready. It'll be ready for the next meeting.
My other question, is that all right?
Yeah.
It's not on recycling. I've got to find it though. Right.
Can I just, was that a yes or no? Is that going to be coming back to us in January? Because as we only got one more meeting in January. Yeah. Is that a definite? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Page 9, under the it says under recycling, paragraph 6. You talked about some work being done with 9 primary schools in partnership with some outside providers and engaging students with recycling, etc. I just wondered if we were going to increase this to other primary schools. I wondered what primary schools had taken part, and is there a plan to increase it, and if so, is there a cost, or is it being met by partners? A bit more information, if you could, please, Leader. 6.3. Yeah, 6.3.
So I could be corrected. So just to say that, and we will check. But this was an initiative that was taken then. There's no plans at the moment to do any further ones. But it is the sort of things that we engage with local schools on a regular basis. So you'll remember, like, renaming the trucks, having a competition. So from time to time we come up with these initiatives to do. I'm not aware of another initiative that's available, but I will check that in case officers have got something that they're about to bring forward.
Okay, just coming back on that, Councillor Jeffries, is that we've obviously done this before. A mobile classroom is provided by Dennis Eagle, vehicle suppliers, for free, as well as some educational packs. Is that something that we're going to do again?
As just said,
Just on the back
I'm
of
not
that.
aware of any
Okay.
plans to do them, but we do these kind of initiatives from time to
Okay.
time.
So we have done
So I
it
will
before.
check. I will go back and check to see if we have got plans that we're about to announce, and I'll let the committee know.
Thank you very much.
So
Cheers.
just by way of update on that, I'll include something in the waste strategy about how we'll engage other stakeholders, schools, etc. as a part of that.
Councillor Green?
Thank you, Chair. There was 2,525 fly tip investigations with only 198 penalty noticed for fly tipping. While the team is working hard, as I know, because I've been out with them and they're doing actually a very good job, what are we doing? Is there a strategy to increase ways to catch those committing fly tipping?
Officers will be able to give you more details on that, but we are committed to catching people that are fly tipping, and I think we have got quite a good record. But as you'll know, when you've been out with our enforcement officers, unless there's actually hard evidence there, you know, someone's left their name or address or something that identifies them back, it is quite difficult to prove where the waste has come from. So that's why, you know, we'd encourage residents that if they see fly tipping, make a note of the registration number, report it to us so we know the vehicle that's dumping. We have got cameras on some of the hotspots so that, you know, we can pick them up. But I think it's credit to our team that they have managed to get that number of successful tickets issued and people are being prosecuted. But we can't stop there. The government has actually given us greater powers, so we're looking at increasing the fines that are available to us, which, you know, should deter even more people. But we'll do everything within our power to stop fly tipping.
And if I can add, Chair, just to give some clarity, Mike Deneen, I'm the AD that would cover environmental enforcement. As Councillor Jeffries has said, the team have issued that many FPNs, and actually it's quite high. We topped the I don't like using the words, but topped the table for a couple of months on the trot there for effective enforcement, and the team actually won a couple of awards recently in relation to the work that they do. So although the numbers can seem disparity, it is a high number, because fly tip in effect is anything more than two black bags full of waste. So you can tell sometimes we'll identify a fly tip, however there won't be anything for us to move on. So the other aspect that you can be certain of is that when the legislation does allow, we do step forward with it. So recently you may have read in the national press that fines, etc., have been increased for fly tipping and graffiti. We immediately moved to allow for our fees and charges to read the maximum legislative amount, so that we always have that hammer to go after people with, and hopefully deter them from actually taking part in the activity in the first place.
Thank you, Chair. I don't know if it's just me personally. Would you find that there's more fly tipping like Aveley end of the borough, Ockenden end of the borough, and Purfleet end of the borough than the other end?
Thank you, Councillor Green. This has been raised to me previously, and I've been informed that there is no differential between the around the borough. There is no particular hotspot, which is something that I look into utilising the data that the teams gather. It is something that we constantly look at as a performance indicator in any event. So if we did notice a particular hotspot in a part of the borough, we would obviously use our resources and try and target that. So, but it is a question I'm asked quite often, but that isn't the case, no.
Thank you, Chair.
Just to give the enforcement team a little bit of praise, which I always like to give when there is. I've just reported some fly tipping quite a lot, and there was papers everywhere and buried in it, and I'm not going to say where, but they've got on top of that in 2 days, and now they're going to prosecute. So it does happen. As long as you go around your ward and report it quickly, it does get taken on board. So it is really good.
I would urge anyone, Chair, to report it online as quickly as possible, and that would give the enforcement team the greatest chance of identifying who the culprits might be.
Anybody else get any Councillor Harrell?
Sorry, thank you. Page 6, 2.3. Last year, in addition to supporting over 50 groups and events, the Active Parks team organised over 70 activity sessions, resulting in over 1,000 attendances. How do these figures compare to previous years, recent years?
I can't give you those specific figures at the moment. They're not on the top of my head. We can get back to you with those. What I would say, though, is that the Active Parks has been successful. You know, it is reaching out to, it's providing activities, certainly during half-term time. We used it recently to provide food as well, so part of the free school meals that was available. So we were able to, you know, provide sandwiches. So not only did they have activities in the park, face painting, all the rest of it, sports activities, but there was also food provided as well. So not sure how it compares with previous years, but I know we do always look at that to make sure that it is the best way to reach the children in the borough.
Lovely, thank you for that. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Councillor Pearce?
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I did have some more of it.
Go on, I'll come back to you.
Right, thank you, sir.
Is it me again?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. Leader. Leader. Can I ask, we used to have the cleaner team come round on cleaning pavements and along brick walls and curbsides, and that used to be April and October time. Is that still going on at all, please?
With regard to that, there were some changes made a few months ago. Some changes were made, and those changes weren't successful. It was a trial, didn't work. When we reviewed it, we said that it's not working. At that period of time, borough started to look a bit dirty, and people were complaining about litter and weeds. So we stopped it. We changed it back. You'll now see the men out there in barrows, sweeping the streets, and at the same time, you know, picking up, if it's obvious as weeds, they'll do it. But we'll also have the ground maintenance that go out, like you say, at those certain times of year to do those certain jobs, whether it be, you know, trees or bushes or weeds. That is still happening. And hopefully people have seen a difference. The borough has suddenly got tidier and there isn't so much litter around because we've gone back to how it should be, people sweeping the streets.
Thank you for that, because weeds were growing nearly as tall as the blooming walls, you know. I mean, a lot of people are lazy. I mean, I've been out there tidying my own, so... But it did look unsightly. Thank you for that.
Councillor Harrell?
Thank you, Chair. Page 6 again, 2.4. The very bottom bullet point. New football practice goals at Bonnygate Park in a joint project with Thurrock's Housing Department. I'd like to give some praise, really, because I'm a local resident there, and I drive by. I often see children, sometimes many children, using the goalposts and that, and it's just a pleasure to see them. The park's full. It's great, and the goalposts have made an improvement, I think, a positive for the children and that, and the residents and that. I've not heard no residents complain about it either, having more kids on the park, which obviously they shouldn't complain, but some residents do, obviously. But I've heard nothing about it, so it's really good. And it's just a welcome inclusion to the park. So I just give my praise for that.
I'm glad you like them. You missed me going there when we opened them, and I was kicking a football, which if you've ever seen me play football, you know it's not a good idea. But even I managed to get one of the balls through the back of the net. But it was probably because the one in goals was about 3'0", and I probably shouldn't have scored. But good, I'm pleased to hear that. And I agree with you. As a local resident as well, I drive past that park all the time, and there's always children playing with those goalposts all the time.
Thank you. Can I say some more?
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you. Right, page 9, 7.1, right at the very bottom. Please, not really a negative, just asking a question really. The very last sentence on 7.1. However, following the operational testing in the final, this is about 21 new vehicles were delivered in the summer months of 2022. Following operational testing in the final quarter of the year, it was determined that the vehicles could not be utilised as originally envisaged. Could someone say why? Why they couldn't be used, and what the thought was behind them when they was bought? For what reason, please?
So the original vehicles that were bought were the big vehicles that you see out and around on the street. When they tested them, because they went out to test them, what they realised was that the side pod, when they lifted it up, it went up, but it was too high. So there's a certain clearance it has to be for cables, and it was too high. The other thing that became pretty apparent when health and safety were watching it was it wasn't actually safe for the men and the women operating the vehicles. The driver could not, keep their concentration on both the back of the vehicle, the side of the vehicle, to make sure that the crews were safe. So it was decided they're not appropriate. We can't do them, so that's when they looked at an alternative route. We've got the smaller vehicles now collecting the food waste.
Thank you for that. Just really a question then. Why wasn't it looked at before? Why was 21 bought? Why wasn't one bought? I know there may have been a discount, maybe you should buy more in bulk, but why wasn't one bought and it looked at first? Surely, I don't know.
Good question. The honest answer, the people responsible for buying those vehicles are no longer here. And if they were, I'd love to ask them why. Why did you go and buy vehicles that aren't suitable? It's frustrating because they were bought for a specific job, and we can't use them for that job anymore. So we're having to look at, review the whole service to make sure that we've got the right vehicles.
Thank you for that. Thank you. It's good. It's not good that people lose their jobs, but it's good that they're not here. if they've made these mistakes, because it's pretty obvious that if you're going to pay hundreds of thousands of pounds on him fleas, maybe into the million, maybe, that they should have been checked first.
If I could just interject there, it wasn't all 21 vehicles. It wasn't as many as that had the side pod on them.
Just coming back on that, does that mean there was only 2 or 3 that had the pods on the side, or?
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but it would probably be about half. It'd probably be about 9 or 10 or something like that off the top of my head.
So, yeah, please. It actually says 10 on there. So I apologise for that first off, but it's still half. But anyway, can I carry on?
Yes.
Thank you. 9.1, same page 10, 9.1. A quick drink, sorry. The flats recycling project was successfully completed, giving all residents in the borough the same access to recycling facilities. The recycling from flats does present a problem to the council as it has high levels of contamination, and it impacts overall quality of materials sent to material recycling facilities. I actually live in Andrew, Councillor Jeffrey's ward, Ockenden, and I live in Dark Green, which is social housing. When the green recycling bin, you got the storage bin, with the bins inside. You've got one bin inside which is, so from personal experience I know this, which is shut. The one outside, the green recycling bin is stored outside. When that's full up, it can take a week for it to be changed over. So you've got an empty one sitting inside, and the one outside full up. Residents come then with recycling in one hand, rubbish in the other hand. They see it, they take both in, just chuck them straight in the bin. So that needs to be looked at. I'm sure it's not going to be just dark green. I'm sure it'll be many others. Obviously, it may just be dark green, but it seems unlikely to me to be just that one. Could someone look into that first, please?
Yeah, I'll pick that up, Councillor, and take that away and have a look at. But historically, blocks of flats do pose unique problems. And no two are the same. The problem you're talking about there is one that we come across quite often, but it is solvable. Unfortunately, we don't have caretakers, obviously, at all the sites like we used to circulate the bins at the time. But I'll certainly take that away and have a look, see what we can do.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair. Finish now. Thank you.
Just to come in on that, we did ask before, might have been a couple of meetings ago, that I've got lots of two-storey flats that when you think of it, it's 12 flats, so it's going to be 36, nearly 40 bins in that. We did look at, asked them to look at putting 3 bins in there, big bins in there, which would take away all the stuff that's got to be shifted. 36 bins is an awful lot of bins to take out of just one small block, and no one's actually really come back on that. Is it anything you can just pick up and come back in January? I don't mind in January, but...
No, that's fine. I can get someone to look at that. And again, it makes perfect sense if you've got a bin chamber in all single bins to replace them with the larger bulk bins, if we can get them in there. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you could. It's a lot of space. You can put covers over them if they want to. They can, like Councillor Hurrell was saying, they can be pushed in somewhere if there's room there to do that. And it just seems it's going to save the bin men. You know, if they can just move 2 or 3 bins and they're moving 36 in one hit, you know.
Which I'm sure they'll be pleased.
Well, not 36 in one hit, but I'm sure they'll be pleased that there's not that much to move.
Yeah.
Councillor Kent, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So just going to go back onto the vehicle procurement. Can I ask, because there's so many vehicles that we now can't use, are we left out of pocket? How much money have we lost and because we can't use them? And also, have we put in place something to prevent something like this happening again? I know we're not going to want new vehicles for another while, I would hope, that once new ones are working well. But obviously we need to learn from this to make sure it doesn't happen again, because I would assume to get an adapted vehicle it will cost more than a standard vehicle. I just wondered, how are we learning from that, what we're putting in place, and have we lost any money over it, please?
Thank you, Councillor Kent. So, first of all, the actual vehicles, they're not completely useless. It's just the food pods that we're not able to use. So we're still using them to collect recycling and general waste. So the vehicles are still being used. With regard to procurement of vehicles, the council is going through major changes, as you know, because of the 114 that we're in. All of that is being looked at to make sure that we don't make those kind of mistakes again. So procurement, spending, everything. I'm also confident that the new teams that we're putting in place, senior directors, assistant directors, don't want to make those kind of mistakes. So that they'll ensure that there's the right process in place to make sure that we don't make that kind of mistake again.
Chair, could I just ask one more? It's from page about 19 onwards, there's a list of various partnership operations that we've taken. Page 19. Page 19 and page 20. There's a list of lots of operations that we've been involved in, partnership operations. Community engagement, surgeries, Operation Abercrombie, various ones listed. Yeah. I just wondered, there's one on page 20 called Operation Collie, where it's working with cleaning alleyways. And I just wondered some more information on that because what sort of whereabouts it was, because there's a lot of confusion on what alleyways we can and can't clear as a council, and it would just be nice to have some more information on that, and also working out whether these partnerships and partnerships like this will be continuing in relation to the financial restrictions that the council is now under.
Can I just come in before you answer that? Because I think Councillor Kent's right. In my ward, we've got a few alleyways that one says it's housing, one says it's highways, and I think at the end of the day, we've got to get together and start sorting out who's what and who belongs to what, because you can't just say, oh, sorry, that's housing. We know it's not housing, it's a highway, and somebody's got to be sort of being able to do it. We're not interested, to be honest, in who it belongs to. We just want it done. you know, but I've got a lot of alleyways like that. I've got actually alleyways where I've just had recently actually where a road runs along the front of the houses, and because they put their bins out the back, just the few houses in between, an alleyway goes down, round and up. So they've gone down and down the other one, but they've forgotten the end. So those sort of things have got to... I've reported it and it has been, you know, it's taken into account. But I think, like Councillor Kent said, we've got to get together. It's a bit like housing getting together with council tax. Somebody's got to join up at some point in time. We can't keep saying, oh, that's not our land, we can't clear it, you know. There's got to be someone, so...
Yeah, I entirely agree. You know, in the past, we've been pretty bad. If you report an alleyway, someone will tell you it's not theirs, then someone else will tell you it's theirs, and you just go round and round in circles. And I think if I can give you an example, it's not quite alleyways, but one of the things we have done is the grass cutting between the housing department and the private estates wasn't joined up. So you'd send the crews out to cut the housing to the social housing estate, but they wouldn't cut the private estate. So the private estate would complain that their grass wasn't being cut, but that'd be cut the following week, and then vice versa would happen. We've changed that. They're now all done at the same time. So I agree, there is still some work to be done to make sure that where we've got alleyways, you know, we know who owns them, and if they do belong to us, we make sure they're cleared. But what I would say is in many cases, they aren't. You know, they don't belong to the council. They belong either to the developer, it was never transferred over, or it belongs to the group of houses that back onto it. There's a whole manner of things. We do need to get better at that, I agree, and I'm sure the department is trying to do that. With regard to Operation Collie, I'm really sorry, Councillor Ken, I can't tell you which ones those are, but we will get back to you with details of what they were.
Sorry, the last point of the question, was about, due to the council's current financial position, are these operations likely to continue with, because there seems to be a good example of working with various partners across the borough to solve issues. Are they likely to continue, or are they under strain because of our financial?
Absolutely. It's really important that the council works, because of the financial position that we're in, that we do work with lots of organisations to deliver the services. And I fully endorse and fully encourage us working with other organisations to do things like this. So no, we will continue to do them.
Can we, talking about the alleyways and everything, is it something you can... I know you've got a lot of work to do, and I don't want to add to your work. I'll try not to. Is it something you can come back to us in January to see if we can get together with that? Because we've got lots of little pieces of land where there's grass on, and, you know, if it doesn't belong to anyone, or like an alleyway, it doesn't. Is there something you can bring back to us?
Yeah, I can certainly look at it. I've only been here a few months, and the alleyways has come up a few times across my desk, and there, as the leader's already stated, there are a number of different sort of community groups that are getting together, and you know, we're working with some of those to get them done, but it does typically be more of a coordinated approach. But notwithstanding that some of these alleyways are private as well, so obviously we don't want to saddle the authority with the cost of clearing and disposal. We need to make sure we're identifying the right pockets of land and charging where we need to be, but absolutely working with local communities. Yeah.
I don't know where I read it the other day, but it's something about all bins now seem to be left out, and that's becoming a problem, especially for the refuse trucks to get down anywhere, and it's sitting in the way. So was there, Michael, I'm about to come in on that, but was there something that you can ask people to put them in their gardens, because that's a week they sit out there all week on the pavements, you know?
There is there is legislation available to us, but it's the best word I can use is long-winded for that particular type of legislation that we would have to invoke. There is a push by local authorities outside of Greater London to be awarded exactly the same powers as the Greater London authorities, in which all of those could immediately issue a ticket for obstruction of the highway or the path. Unfortunately, we can't do that. We have to use different legislation, which means a continued gathering of evidence, let's say, which takes a lot of time and is probably less effective than we want it to be. So at the moment, we would like to encourage and engage with those residents and speak to them around it. So when my patrolling officers notice something like that, knock on the door, have a chat. There are obviously properties where there is no space for those to be in, and obviously local solutions should be found as well between the residents themselves. However, I will keep you updated in our fight to try and gain the same legislative powers as those in the Greater London authorities have.
You're going to work with housing too, because where you've got perhaps an estate that was or is still, some part of it is council owned and some part of it isn't. So it's just where we have had housing go out and ask them to pull their bins into, because they've got the space to pull them in during the week and then put them out. You know, you don't mind them being out the night before or the day, but you don't want them out for sort of 7 days a week. You know, that's what it's coming to now. I don't know if any other councillors have got it in their ward, but it is becoming a problem. The housing will go round and say to them, could we ask you to pull your bins into your curtilage of your home? So is that something you do as well? Or?
Yeah, that will continue.
Yeah,
all officers that patrol with that mindset, if they notice a problem in general terms, they try to fix the problem. It's not always raised up to my level or to yourselves even. It's just done on a localised level. But I'll always ask my officers, if they see a problem, try and fix it. And that's the best advice I can give them, really, and we'll continue to do that.
Lovely. Thanks, Michael. Councillor Green, did you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at page 11, you've got the play inspection and maintenance. I just wanted to say it's great to see that we are maintaining all these areas, the play equipment and removing graffiti and painting where necessary. I'm just wondering what do we actually do for play equipment like, I don't know if you know Purfleet very well, the green, by the family centre there's a playground there, and on the Garrison there's like little playground areas. What do we do to maintain those play equipment?
So all play equipment's inspected regularly. I'll have to defer to officers to give you the actual timescale on that. So all equipment, and if it is found to be faulty, it's either removed or it's repaired. And that's what a lot of this is, where we've gone out, repainted and repaired equipment. So it is monitored and it is looked after. I don't know if you want to add anything.
No, and it's nothing other than it is quite heavily governed in terms of especially the health and safety aspect. So it's governed by Rosberg, in fact, on some of the equipment. So I think the frequency of inspections fortnightly, and then the repairs are done pretty quickly as well, in actions. But if there is any areas that you, in particular, I've made a note of those ones, I can get the team to go and have a look and see if there's any issues.
Thank you. Just those little areas that are on the estates like the Garrison, they seem that they probably are monitored, and I'm not saying they're not. They just seem they may need a little bit of TLC.
Yeah, I just encourage any councillor to report issues that they've got with any play equipment, and it's looked at straight away.
Thanks, Andrew. And I just pick up, I'm going to be picky now, but on page 11, could we get names right of places? Because it isn't Blackshot's recreation ground, it's King George's playing field. And I think there'd be a lot of people out there who might see this and think it isn't Blackshot's recreation ground. It is more than that, so, just being picky. Yes, thank you. Any other questions, Councillor Harrell?
Just the one. Page 12, War Memorials. The team continues to deliver this scheduled inspections and maintenance. I won't read the 3 lines, but just want to say thank you for doing that, because this time of year, the most important time of year, obviously, for this, I just want to say, put it on record that it's great that we do this as a council. It's really important, so thank you very much for doing that.
Can I just add, to say thank you to the team that look after the war memorials, because it's really important. They should be looked after all year round, which they are, but this time of year it's really important that they get. So I think our team do a really good job making sure that the war memorials are always well maintained. And I should say our communities as well, because a lot of them, they get that extra care from our communities, various community groups that do them.
Yeah, I'm in all cities looked after but by the residents, but I know there's... I just wanted to pass on perhaps my thanks to Liz Woods, because they're putting red pansies in a lot of planters, so they're doing really well. So thanks to them, you know, because they're doing a lot of work just before Remembrance, and it's nice to see, you know. It's you were just talking about community doing things, and obviously with housing, we've got not that I actually agree with it in the beginning, but I'm bending. But we're taking the wooden posts out and putting hedging in, and it's where community have got involved. They've given them a long hose, to water them sort of after Christmas, so they don't lose their, you know, growing time. They get on. I think they're going to be quite high to start with, but it's I'm not sure. I'll wait and be enthused with it when it comes. So it's probably better than the wooden bollards that we've not looked after, you know. So just to say, things do happen in the community. You know, they are doing very well. Any other questions at all? Councillor Pearce?
It's just going back to bins. I know we're moaning about residents, but what about the lorries? They come along, they take your bins from, say, your brick wall, your gate, but they won't bring them back. They leave them up on the pathways or even on parking lots. Anybody going by who's an invalid in a chair, they've got to try and go out. And I've mentioned this several times, but I'm in a crescent moon area where we've got a path, then we've got a green area, and then further up we've got parking, and then we've got the main path. But they leave them on the main path after they've emptied them. I wonder if anything could be... Don't like to be moany, but, you know, it's coming a habit now. Thank you.
No, they should be returning the bins to the collection point from where they're presented, so I'll pick that up with the team and, yeah, put some focus on that. Yeah, no problem.
Questions at all? No? Okay. All right. Thank you very much for that. It's a good report, and perhaps some of those things can come back to us in January. Be really good. Thank you, Andrew. Did you want to leave? I'll stay. Yes, fine. Thank you.
Can't wait to get out.
No.
Good night.
Thank you very much. Okay, agenda item 5, financial penalties for enforcement of consumer protection legislation relevant to letting agents in Landlord Charlotte.
Hello, Chair, thank you. So I've got a paper here that I want to present to the committee tonight. It's in relation to a new policy for imposing financial penalties for breaches of legislation relating to letting agents and landlords. The legislation that's covered for this policy is the Tenants' Fees Act. That's the overarching legislation. However, there's also Consumer Rights Act, redress schemes and client money protection schemes legislation that's relevant. And the recommendation is that the committee note the contents of this report and also supports this policy to go forward to be agreed at Cabinet. Private rented sector in the housing market is second only to owner occupation in England, and the rapid growth of the sector has prompted a need for property management standards. There's no overarching statutory regulation of the private rented sector, although letting agents and landlords are subject to consumer protection laws, which is why I'm coming from trading standards to present this rather than somebody from housing. There are specific provisions for letting agents and landlords in relation to the charging of fees and membership of redress schemes. So just to outline, Tenants' Fees Act, that relates to, it prohibits landlords and agents from charging any fees to tenants other than those that are permitted in the Act. So there's very much a strong consumer protection element there. Consumer Rights Act, this requires agents to display a list of relevant fees that tenants and landlords are required to pay. So, as I say, again, there's the consumer protection element there where you're displaying that information and being very transparent with the residents or the consumers that are relying on these services. Client money protection schemes for property agents. So a property agent is somebody like a letting agent who's holding client money, and they must be a member of an approved or designated client money protection scheme. So that when somebody's handing over things like deposits, that sort of thing, that money's protected. They're not just banking it and going on a holiday or embezzling it, for example. Redress schemes for letting agency work and property management work. Again, all letting agents need to be a member of a redress scheme, and this is again so that where you've got a resident or a tenant who's got an issue, they can actually have a formal process to be able to go through, and that's sort of the redress scheme that they would go through. So trading standards, we've got a statutory duty to enforce this legislation, and we need to make sure that we are determining the appropriate enforcement action where breaches are identified. And they are civil in the first instance, and we are able, if this policy is brought into play, we are able to impose a financial penalty, and that's what this policy is to outline, full transparency about how we would do that. Any decisions on imposing financial penalties will be made in line with the policy, and the policy is essential in allowing us to take effective enforcement action under this legislation. It is a significant addition to the range of tools in the Council's existing enforcement policy as a means of achieving business compliance. And as I say, this is an amendment to our existing enforcement policy, so it will just sort of tag on the end to our full remit of options that's already available to us. If the policy wasn't agreed by the committee, or if you weren't happy with it, then trading standards would not be able to impose financial penalties on unscrupulous landlords and letting agents. So obviously there could be a detriment there to Thurrock residents who, in terms of being in private rented accommodation, etc., can be vulnerable due to their nature and of the short lease rental agreements. So that's my overall summary. I'm happy to take questions or clarify anything.
Thank you, Charlotte, very much. Is that where the landlords take a deposit from the people and they hold that? Is that something that could be, because it's quite a bit of money sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. So they would have to. It's the client money protection scheme. So it's ensuring that they are members of those schemes and that they're handling that money correctly and protecting it for the consumers.
How do we check that, Charlotte?
That's something that trading standards would check. So we would check that directly with the businesses. I believe there's so with the let me get my words out here, right? With the schemes, they all have to be registered, okay? So a letting agent would have to be registered with those schemes, and because of the powers that we've got, we can ask for that information and, double check. So if letting agent number A, for example, says, yes, I'm a member of X, Y and Z scheme, we can actually contact that scheme, the organisation that runs it, and clarify that information with them. And it is just working with businesses as well.
Charlotte, is that something, do we work closely with housing? Because could HMOs get involved in, could they be part of that scheme sometimes, depending on who's in the home?
Yeah, absolutely. We work very closely with housing, and they are cited on this paper and fully support it. With regards to HMOs, the Tenants Fees Act and the legislation that applies here would apply to HMO owners, or no, people that run them, sorry. Yeah, so yeah, the landlords. So it would apply to them as well.
Anybody got any questions? Councillor Green?
Thank you, Chair. With would that cover land as well? So say if somebody rents, I'll give you an example, Parsonage Road in West Thurrock. We have issues down there where they pay money to an agent to look after the trees, the bin sheds, look after the road. Would this policy cover that against the agent?
No, this policy wouldn't. So this is just in relation to Tenants Fees Act. Actually, could you give me a bit more detail? Because I'm just thinking it actually might do. Could you just explain a bit more about it?
So they would rent a property, and part of the property they would have to pay towards an agent to maintain their local road, and part of that would cover like cutting the grass, trees, bin sheds, picking up litter.
Thank you. I get where you're coming from now, yeah. So the tenants' fees, they can only charge certain fees, and I've got those fees here. Bear with me. Oh, here it is. So under the legislation, a landlord or letting agent can only charge rent, a refundable tenancy deposit, a refundable holding deposit, payments to change the tenancy, payments associated with early termination of the tenancy, payments in respect of utilities, communication services, TV licence and council tax, and a default fee for late payment of rent. So if it's not one of those things and there's a charge outside of that, then potentially that would be covered. So if you wanted to give me some further details outside of this meeting, then obviously we could look into that. I can't promise that it definitely would cover it, because I'd have to have a look at the short, what do you call it, the lease agreement and whatnot to see where we sit with that, but potentially it could cover that if it was outside of that scope.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Anybody else got any questions? Charlotte? No? You've done well. I like that. I haven't got any more questions, Charlotte, either. Sorry?
Thank you. I was just going to say, is it okay if I leave? If I've no further questions? That's lovely. Thank you.
I did press it once. Item 6, page 49, annual status report on air quality and control. Is that Peter Bond? Yeah.
Peter, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you still hear me?
Thank you, Peter.
Great. So just to start with a bit of a rundown of the statutory background of this report. So the annual status report on air quality comes out of our obligations under Part 4 of the Environment Act, wherein we are required to declare an air quality management area where there are monitored or modelled exceedances of the national air quality objectives. And within 18 months of declaration, we are required to produce an air quality action plan, which is a set of actions that the council commits to take to bring air quality back into compliance with those national air quality objectives, which are presented in
Peter, sorry to interrupt you. Is there any way of turning your mic up slightly?
Oh, I can. Is there?
Okay.
the...
Does that help?
Is this any better?
Not really, no.
Right,
Can we
okay.
do it on there, look?
It's on 100.
Yeah. Can you not turn yours up on your computer, Peter?
I'm not sure that there's anything for me to do that in the settings. Let's have a
Okay, we'll
look.
just listen more intently then.
Okay. Well, in any case, I'll move a bit closer. Where was I? So,
Sorry, just one moment. There is a
Yeah.
volume switch at the side here. I don't know if that would help.
I don't know if I should keep talking, otherwise how will you test it? Is that any better? I'm not hearing you now.
Off you go, thank you.
Yeah, okay. And as part of that process, we're required to produce this statutory report, the annual status report on air quality, which is essentially a data rundown. And it's a summary of our monitoring data for the previous year. It's published and submitted to DEFRA in the middle of every year. And our report has now been approved by DEFRA. So they're happy with all of the findings and calculations within it. So in terms of what we've found, all of the monitoring sites for nitrogen dioxide are compliant or were compliant in 2022. The only two monitoring sites that were still within 10% of the relevant air quality objective were the Lakeside Tesco and Purfleet monitoring sites. Lakeside Tesco doesn't really have any relevant exposure. That's sensitive receptors such as residential properties, care homes, hospitals and schools. But Purfleet does. There has been a slight increase in levels of nitrogen dioxide monitored at some of our monitoring stations between 2021 and 2022. And the reason for that is likely to have just been the impact of traffic returning after the pandemic. So more people returning to work and working in person rather than working from home. But it's important to note that that increase compared with 2021 still is a substantial decrease compared with 2019, which is the most recent pre-pandemic year that we've got. So things are still improving as we would expect them to. And you can see that on tables presented within Appendix A.1, which is the actual annual status report itself, and those tables start on page 39 of the report. So in terms of particulate matter, which is the ultrafine dust and one of the key pollutants of concern in Thurrock, we subdivide PM into PM10 and PM2.5, and those numbers just relate to the size of particles. So again, all monitoring stations were compliant with the National Air Quality Objectives for 2022. An important thing to note is that this year, a new objective was put in place for PM2.5, for smaller particle sizes. But because the objective was only introduced this year, it hasn't been featured in our annual status report for 2022, and it will be mentioned in the next year's annual status report. But again, it's important to note that compliance with that objective doesn't fall to the responsibility of the local authority. That's a central government responsibility, and we're just required to show that we are putting measures in place to aid improvement there. There are no implications of this report, legal, financial, diversity or sustainability. And I'll take questions now if there are any.
Thank you, Peter. I probably have got a few questions, but tell me what a diffusion tube is.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so a diffusion tube is what's called a passive sampler. The passive means that there's no electricity or anything like that. It's basically a 5 centimetre long perspex tube with a cap on either end. And in one cap, there's a filter coated in a substance that degrades predictably with exposure to nitrogen dioxide, which means that what you can do is you can tack them onto the side of a lamppost, leave it there for a month, take it down, seal it up with the other cap, and then send it off to the lab, and they'll tell you what your ambient concentration of nitrogen dioxide is for that month.
Have we got this mostly on big roads, like A roads? Have we got it on most of those?
So an important principle in the monitoring is that you monitor where there is exposure, and exposure means basically where there are people to be harmed by the air pollution. So there's no point putting a monitor in the middle of the A13, for example, because there's nobody there to breathe it for any amount of time that would be of any consequence to their health, really. So most of our monitoring sites are near residential buildings.
Can you just tell me, Peter, London Road, obviously it's a bad road. Since the pandemic, has it gone up a lot? I mean, thank you for this, because 18 months you've been in post, haven't you? And this is quite a big agenda. And having read quite a bit of it, London Road seems to me to be the worst.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And in particular, it's London Road in Purfleet that is the worst site that we've got. So the annual mean nitrogen dioxide at that site was, I believe it was 39.3 micrograms per cubic metre as a concentration. And the annual air quality objective is 40. So it's pretty close. I'll just see if I can scroll through the report and find the actual trend graph. So I don't know if you've got easy access to Appendix 8.1, but it's on page 39, and it's Thurrock 8 is the site in question on London Road, and actually that did decrease. That was one of the sites that decreased between 2021 and 22, and we've seen, that's just a continuation of the decrease that we've had over the last 5 years at that site.
Wouldn't 21 and 22 be part of the COVID in a way? 'Cause 21 definitely would be, wouldn't it?
2021 definitely was. 22, I believe that there were no lockdowns in 2022. So that was what we would call a post-pandemic year, because there wasn't any direct impact in that sense. But as I say, these reports, these annual status reports, they cover the previous year of monitoring. So this report was published in June this year, and in June next year we'll have a rundown of the data for 2023. Sorry, I'm not getting audio through
The Sainsbury's roundabout, Pilgrim's Lane, where you've got a site that was for Kia, doing all the work. So could it add up that it's not only the lorries, it's their site that's adding to that as well?
Quite possibly, yeah. The limitation of these, this type of monitoring is that you can't exactly tell what the source of the pollution is from the data that you're getting. You can only tell what the ambient concentrations are, and then it's down to professional judgment to say, basically, where it's coming from. So it's likely that if there is a substantial percentage of traffic around that site coming from that site, then a lot of the air pollution that is being monitored there is arising from their own vehicles. Yeah, that's correct.
Michael, did you want to come in?
Sorry, I'm not sure if there's a question being asked there. I'm getting no audio through for that.
On, Peter?
Hi, so I didn't get any audio through for that. I think Mike might not have a microphone in front of him.
No, I think he just wanted to help me out
with
some of the graphs. It's all right. Thank you. you want to carry on, Peter, or do you want us to ask you questions now?
Yeah, but I'll just take questions. Yeah, that's right.
Thank you, Chair. Evening, Peter. The reduction in the air pollution. Why is there a reduction? Is it to do with electric vehicles, or is there more to it? Can you answer, please?
Yeah, so we've got quite a diverse range of sources of air pollution in our borough. You're right to point out that road traffic is the dominant one, and within that, it's private diesel vehicles that are the dominant emitter of nitrogen dioxide in particular. The picture is a little bit different with particulate matter, but we'll get to that. Broadly speaking, yes, electric vehicle proliferation will be responsible for some improvement. I think that over the previous years, one of the main things that we've seen is increasingly tight regulations by the European emission standards. So that's when we describe an HGV as Euro 6, for example, that's an emissions standard. And with those standards becoming tighter with time, that means that engines are burning cleaner, basically. So they are emitting less. We've also got controls in place for other things like emissions through the planning approvals process, planning and development process. So if we get major developments in, for example, I will review an air quality assessment associated with that and make recommendations for things like dust mitigation, as well as mitigation of NO2 emissions from HGVs. As I said, sources are a bit different with particulate matter. So construction is one of the big ones. And yeah, as I said, we control that largely through planning, through the planning process, and also through our nuisance work. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you.
Thank you, yeah.
Okay, Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. As the councillor for Purfleet, I'm quite concerned to hear about the increased air pollution around that area. Would you say that's due to vehicles more than anything?
So just to clarify, there hasn't been an increase in Purfleet. So that graph that's presented on page 39 of Appendix 8.1 does show that Thurrock 8 is the monitoring station that's in Purfleet on London Road, and it shows that there has been an improvement in air quality there over the last 5 years at least. But yes, you're absolutely correct that the dominant emission source of nitrogen dioxide on London Road in Purfleet will be traffic, and there's a substantial amount of HGV traffic that travels down that road from the ports.
Thank you. So is it nitrogen dioxide that's high over there?
It is, that's correct, yeah. It's nitrogen dioxide that's high.
So if there was a extra vehicles at a development with loads of, let's say, a car plant, would that bring a lot more air pollution to that area?
Well, it would depend how many vehicles there were being added to the existing annual daily traffic. So I think that, another important thing to point out is that even that Purfleet site, which is the worst site in the borough for air quality, it still is also compliant with the national air quality objectives. So nobody there is breathing in what are considered to be illegal levels of air pollution.
So say if there was an extra 2,000 vehicles on that road over a couple of weeks to a month, would that increase that monitor?
So I don't know what the annual average daily traffic movements on that road are, but an addition of 2,000 over a few weeks does sound significant, and it's likely that would have some impact on the nitrogen dioxide levels, yes.
Okay, thank you. I'm good.
You said 2,000, you said 230, did you? 2,000. Okay. Sure about that. Peter, does it... everywhere's trying to get cars off the road. probably won't work to that extent, but where we're trying to bring in the river taxis for the river, once we get Chilby Riverside, you know, the ferry side sorted out and we get more taxis, will that alter a little bit in your view?
Well, I haven't seen any figures for how many cars that is expected to take off the road, so unfortunately I couldn't possibly say, but in general, providing more sustainable transport options is the way that we need to go to reduce emissions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for your report. Two questions. Firstly, you're talking about the emissions. I wondered just about that you measure it especially more residential, where there's residential areas. Have we got these monitors around by our schools? Because they're areas that do get a lot of heavy traffic at specific times of the day. That's my first question.
Yes, I'm sure that some of the monitors will be around schools. If you would like to take a look at the report, you'll see the exact locations of all of the monitoring sites that we've got. It's all posted there and publicly available.
Okay, thank you. Another question is in relation to looking at the overview of the whole air quality as a whole in the borough. How are you looking at? Do you have an input in other departments with regards to your views of keeping air quality low regarding the development in other areas of the borough? And also, in light of the council's current financial restrictions, are you concerned about that would be that any funding that you need to monitor the air quality in the future could be under threat?
So I think that the question about funding for monitoring being under threat is not really something I'm in a position to answer. As far as I'm aware, there is no threat to funding to our air quality monitoring network. But I'm aware that it would be a hugely unpopular decision to remove any of our air quality monitoring network from the borough. I'm sorry, could you repeat the first part of the question?
About what your plans are to ensure that we keep the emissions as low as they are underneath the current level that they should be under in the future.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, so we, as I said in the kind of preamble to this, we've got this air quality action plan, which is part of the statutory documentation that goes around our managing of air quality. And that action plan is a 5-yearly document and it's up for renewal. So I am in the early phases of developing the new air quality action plan, which is a huge piece of partnership working with a wide range of other departments and external partners to try and create actions which will shift us to a more proactive and holistic approach to managing air quality in our borough and bringing further improvements to concentrations.
Thank you.
Peter, just bringing up. Sorry, Michael. Sorry.
I can just add, Councillor Kent as well, that there would be no introduction on reduce of funding, etc., because of the 114, as you've mentioned. It's a statutory obligation on us to produce this report, so therefore it goes to explain that there is no real concern. I don't think it's fair to Peter to ask him to answer that sort of question. So if I take that, there shouldn't be any level of decrease in funding. It's a statutory obligation to provide the report, and therefore you'll be provided with it next year as well.
Took the words out of my mouth then, only because we've seen it before a few months ago. We had to put this, or 18 months before Peter was put in place. We said that this post had to come. Is he still there? Peter, are you still there?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, just asking about. Councillor Kent was asking about schools. Obviously, most of our schools are in dead ends, and don't have traffic going through, but they have obviously people sometimes sitting with their cars going, especially in the winter, is an offence, obviously, but we have to get to that as a borough. But have we got any of these devices outside or near where schools are?
So I'm not off the top of my head aware of any devices near schools. I'm sure that we do have some. In terms of the impact of engine idling, I am aware that it's one of the actions in our air quality action plan, and it certainly will be an action that is carried through in terms of the need for managing emissions from that source. And I'm aware that highways and I think it's the the parking enforcement officers have been carrying out projects to go down and visit schools at pick-up and drop-off times, to talk to drivers who are idling there and inform them of the law and the fact that it is an offence, because I think that awareness, or a lack of awareness of the fact that it is an offence, is one of the key problems there.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think we've got people actually found out the other day, we've got actual people idling their vehicles and getting out and leaving them and going up to school and leaving them running. Well, that's obviously an offence anyway, isn't it? So,
Be more concerned
but I
about
think
their vehicles got stolen, Chair.
a motion going through at the moment about schools. So this is something we could bring up on this to make schools aware that they've got to really think about outside their school gates and not always inside, you know. So this is something that affects the children walking to school. Any other questions?
Thank you, Chair. Without this sounding a silly question,
No questions, silly.
you ain't heard it yet. Does the wind direction make a difference to the air pollution? Air quality in Thurrock?
Yeah, it absolutely does. Yeah, not a silly question at all. So there are a number of pollutants that are very, very long-ranged in the atmosphere. So gaseous pollutants like nitrogen dioxide tend to react out through things like photolytic reactions, and they disperse to such an extent that they are, you know, so diluted they wouldn't really have all that much of an impact. Although we do have what are known as background concentrations, which is what is carried from elsewhere. But when it comes to finer particles like PM2.5, you can actually get that travelling thousands of kilometres, which is why we often see impacts of Saharan dust in Thurrock. So it's one of the things that tends to happen around Easter time, is that we get quite high pollution episodes because the prevailing wind direction reverses and we get a lot of transport from surface emissions on the continent. And that blows over into the UK and contributes to our background levels, along with all of the locally emitted pollution.
Thank you for that, Peter. I was thinking more localised, really. From what I know, I think we get more westerly winds than we do easterly, as a whole, throughout the year. So if the rest of the country was cleaner, the air was cleaner, would it be cleaner blowing towards us? Or am I wrong?
No, that's true. Yeah, so that's why there is, national work ongoing to improve air quality. It's not just Thurrock that is taking action here. It's every local authority in the country and national statutory bodies as well. Background air pollution is one of the main sources of air pollution in Thurrock. So yeah, it's important to work with our partners, and particularly in London. I've kind of inserted myself into the East London Air Quality Cluster Group, which is a group of London Borough air quality officers who meet regularly to discuss actions that they're taking and options for working in partnership. So I'm present and keeping an eye on what's going on to the west of us.
Any other questions?
Just to say thank you very much for the in-depth answers to that. The report is very good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
As we said, no question is silly. Might be a silly question, but pollution on the river, do we ever do any of that? just to find out, because the traffic that's going up and down the river is getting more and more, especially with all the docks that, you know, we've got now.
Yeah, absolutely. So monitoring of emissions from the river is something that the Port of London Authority is looking into, I believe. We don't have all that much of a concern about it, because the thing is that things like nitrogen dioxide, they do decrease in concentration very rapidly with distance from the source. But then the other thing that you've got to factor in is that actually, you know, London and the UK as a whole require a certain amount of logistics, goods and services to be delivered by one transport mode or another. And if you're moving them by boat, then it's something like 95% more efficient by NOx emissions compared with moving them by HGV on the road. So broadly, that's something that we want to be encouraging as much as we can.
Thank you, Peter. Chair, any other questions? No? Sir Pearce.
Thank you, Chair. Hello, Peter. We used to be one of the worst areas in the borough in the UK. Is that still the same, or is there people, you know, areas worse than us?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely not the case anymore, I'm happy to say. Thurrock, given that all of our air quality monitoring stations are showing compliance with the national air quality objectives, we are certainly far better than probably any metropolitan authority that you'd see in England or the UK.
Still on this, I live in Aveley, and I'm rather concerned about the air pollution which could be happening in the next few years with all development which might be going on or is going on. I'm beginning to very concerned about all this, and not just Aveley but the rest of the borough. Have you got any more concerns on that?
So just looking at the report itself, and page 43, I've got the monitoring data, the 5-yearly trend presented in a bar chart for AQMA, or Air Quality Management Area number 25, which is in Aveley. And the two monitoring sites that we've got there, it's two diffusion tubes, and they are AVSL and AVHS, if you'd like to know the codes for them. And if you take a look at that table, you can see that in 2022, concentrations of nitrogen dioxide were below 30 micrograms per cubic metre. So this is well into compliance with the national air quality objective. Obviously, that doesn't mean that air quality isn't of concern in Aveley. We're still taking measures to control it and try and reduce it further. And in terms of planning and development, it will be through that mechanism that I spoke of earlier, wherein I'm a statutory consultee on planning applications. And if I get applications come across my desk that I believe represent a risk of increasing air pollution emissions in Aveley, then or anywhere else for that matter, I will always try and secure an air quality assessment by planning condition if it hasn't already been written. And I'll review that, and in line with the findings of that, I'll suggest methods of reducing emissions further from that development.
Thank you for that, Peter. I know with more development comes more cars, and it might not always be electric, but anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Does that mean you'll get perhaps involved with the local development plan? You know,
yes, absolutely.
At the beginning. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay,
I'm
lovely.
setting up a meeting with Kirsty at the moment, actually.
Yeah. Thank you. Cheers. Any other questions at all? No? Okay. So all we've got is a recommendation that the report be noted, and I think that it's a good report. At least we know more than we did before, so it's good that we're seeing streets and places where we know where the pollution is, and we're now seeing it on paper. So thank you, Peter. Very good
Thanks
work.
very much.
For 18 months, that's not bad. It's good.
Thank you.
Really good. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Right, we're page 157, just on the work programme now. obviously our next meeting's in January, isn't it? So has anybody got anything they want to bring forward? Councillor Harrell.
Yeah, just the one question. I wasn't available. Excuse me. I wasn't available last meeting. Sorry, I lost track of what I was going to say. The tree report.
Sorry?
There was meant to be a tree report in June. It didn't happen. Do we know when it will be happening? Please, will it be in January or will it be? Is it being missed? I don't know.
Say that again, because I missed the...
There was meant to be a tree report in the June meeting.
The tree surgery
Yes,
contract.
please, yeah.
Do you want that brought back?
Well, it didn't happen in June.
Okay.
We was told it would be happening,
Well,
be
ask Vince to
presented,
come back
and it
then.
never got presented. So, if
that's
anyone
fine.
knows when, please.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Just some clarification. On the list of reports we were due to have tonight, there was two that were deferred: the verbal update on the clean and green and the waste strategy. Yeah. Now, I know the waste. I'm assuming that waste strategy is what we talked about earlier, which is said should be ready for January.
We've told them definitely.
Yeah. The verbal update, is that still relevant? Is that going to be in January, or is that? Because it's saying verbal update, is that just something that was going to happen because it's verbal, it's now not going to happen? Does that make any sense?
We should have them all back.
Yeah, because I just saw it doesn't appear anywhere else, and January is our last meeting.
Yeah, I think we could have them back because January's not that big a work programme. So I think they could both come back. We all probably got questions about that. It doesn't come on. We need to keep on top of it because I think we need to know what's happening and if it's working. And we need to keep on top of it. So, because really, bins, our residents notice the bin. You know, the first thing they see, they come out the house, isn't it, the bin? So they want to know that it's working. It seems to be working at the moment, and people are beginning to get used to when the brown bin is and when the blue bin is. So it seems to be working at the moment. But no, I'm quite happy. I mean, it'd be Councillor Morris Cook that would be chairing, but. Yeah, I'm happy for that to come back. I think they should both come back to us so we know what's going on. So it's not very extensive, the January one, so we could have that back, you know. Yeah. Anything else anybody would like? Yeah, Councillor Green.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking at the dates, from January, the next potential meeting for this would be end of May, June. I think that's too much of a large gap. I think it may be worth looking at having a meeting at some point in March before Purda.
Do it because we're probably being Purda.
Yeah. I mean, the last. Before, I think it's the last week of March, so there may be the first 2 weeks in March.
Unless there's anything that we really need to see, I'm not sure that it may be. I mean, if there's anyone that really wants something to come back in March, we won't know till January. So
my only concern is the length of gap between January and it would be the end of May, beginning of. Let's be realistic. It's probably going to be June, and I think that's too much of a large gap for the committee not to meet.
No, I mean, if there's anything that anybody really wants after that January meeting, then we can procure it then, I think. You know, and if we've got something that we really want to see, then we can call an extraordinary meeting, whatever. So, you know, that can be called. So, yeah, I'd be quite happy, but I'll only be a member then, so, or vice chair. So, but yeah, I'm quite happy to see. I'm quite happy to thrash anything out because I think we've all got questions and things that affect us, our borough. You know, especially with the waste strategy. I think it's been something that's been quite controversial in places. So I think we have to keep on top of it, don't we? We have to keep asking questions. You know, I'm quite happy. So I think when we have that January one, if there's anything that anybody wants back, really, that's the time to say it. Okay? Right. Thank you, Michael. Sorry to have kept you there so long.
So long.
You know. Thank you. Much appreciated. Has Peter gone? Yes. Okay. Right. I think he's done a good job actually. Since he's not been in post for that long, we've got a lot of very detailed. Yeah, it was really good to see where you could actually see the roads and the pollution. And we know, as most of us have lived here a long while, we know what roads are worse. You know, we know what roads are bad. You know, we know. I don't know how much more London Road could actually take, to be honest. Yeah. Are we off? Are we off? Take us off there, yeah, please. Thank you.